For wrestling diehards only, this is the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast, coming at you live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Thanks for being with us live tonight. My name is Brandon Baney, and first up is Al Fontes. Al, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. I think I'm starting to come down with a cold, so I'm going to try and rest and rehab a little bit here as we hit the stretch drive now. Coming up the three busiest weeks of the winter sports season. Girls state basketball next week, state wrestling, of course, 2 weeks, and then state boys basketball the week after that. It's all boom, boom, boom all in a row, so I got to be on top of my game. A guy who's always on top of his game, Jacob Eck, with us tonight as well. What's going on, Jacob?
How's it going?
Going well. We're doing great. And everybody in the chat, thanks for joining us, of course, here on the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast. Brian Zollinger is going to try and make it tonight. He was officiating again. When we do these Wednesday night shows, it's hard for Brian sometimes because he's always officiating, but we'll see if he pops in at some point tonight. But if you're in the chat, a couple of things that I would ask you to do for us. Hit that like button, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. And then if you're on Facebook, share this post with everybody else. And same thing on Twitter, retweet that bad boy. And then on YouTube, if you would hit that subscribe button. All of those things help us in the social media algorithms as we, people come back and try and watch it at a later time, because not everybody can be with us live tonight. Live with us tonight, though, is Bugsy C. And he's got a real fired up question right out of the gates, guys. He says, who is responsible for these rankings, and are they really doing their job every week? What I will tell you, Bugsy, is we all contribute to them. It's kind of a communal effort. And so we have a lot of voices, a lot of people looking at this stuff, and we do the best we can. And I guess if you're not happy with the rankings, then that's part of the deal. We want to spark the conversation a little bit. Of course, we want it all to be respectful conversation as well. So that is the long and short answer on the rankings. We always start the show, and if you're in the chat tonight, drop a comment and we'll throw it up on the screen. Even if it's a comment like Bugsy's that says we're all idiots, we don't know what we're doing, we'll still put it up on the screen. We want to know where you're watching from tonight. And, what team, what athlete you're representing. But we always start the show with the best thing that we saw from the past week of action. Jacob, what was the best thing that you saw from this past week?
I'm going to go Ezra Clemens winning Weezer, but beating Raleigh champ Tyler Feely, and then pinning two-time state champ in the finals. Tough. It's probably the best result I saw.
Yeah, that was a huge result that reverberated statewide for sure. Al, what was the best thing that you saw from the past week?
I'll try not to be too long-winded. I didn't see any competition in person, but I did look over the Weezer tournament. And this tournament, usually when you have a tournament with all the placers, usually it's less than 10% are freshmen. This tournament had 19 freshmen place, roughly 21%. And we got a chance to see some of the up-and-coming freshmen, Ryan Hersher to Caldwell at 98s, who's number one in the 4A. And then at 113s, you got a freshman from Fruitland who's number two in the 3A, and both them won the tournament. But at the end of the day, I just want to give a shout-out to all wrestlers who've made it to this point in the season. As we're entering the postseason, the district, state, and nationals, each wrestler, regardless of their records, had their ups and downs this year. Significant number of people have come out and tried out but quit in the midst of, wrestling's really tough and demanding. At the end of the day, it's not for everyone, but those that have remained, keep your head up high and know that you've made it this far. And it's the toughest sport in the world. And I recall just hearing from my coaches back in the day when they tried to explain their wrestling. And it's not their quote, it's quotes that, they picked up. To sustain in wrestling, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And to be successful, you have to be willing to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. And that means getting up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning to go do a 2-mile run. Simply put, wrestling is the single most toughest sport in the world. It's one of those sports where you suffer both mentally and physically in very arduous conditions and still have to remain focused. And that's in training, competition, and day-to-day life. And if you look at Dan Gable, he had a quote said, "Once you have wrestled, everything else in life is easy." So basically, this is to all wrestlers that made it to this point, entering the postseason. Good luck to everyone.
Al, I couldn't agree more with what you just said there. And that was the point that I was going to bring up. The best thing that I have seen, not just this week, but every week, is the sportsmanship that's being displayed by fans, parents, and even the wrestlers themselves. We like to, talk a little friendly smack talk occasionally here on the Matt Chat Prepcast, but across the board, I think the respect and the admiration for what these young men and women are doing on the mats is simply incredible. It's easy to forget. There's a lot of pressure on these competitors. It's not a team sport. It's not like football where you can rely on the 10 other guys that are on the field with you, or in basketball where you've got teammates you can give the ball to. In wrestling, yes, you're part of a team, but it is your job to go out and win your match. And you can't always, right? Very rarely does somebody ever go undefeated in competition. And so it's a good reminder as we're talking about these results and we're talking about, oh man, this guy lost. And it's not because he's bad and did a terrible job. He just, on that day, his opponent was better. And that swings all the time. We've seen it. We could point to any number of competitions this year where somebody lost to this person earlier in the year and they came back and won the second time. So that's always something to keep in mind and keep that perspective too, is that everybody out there competing does a tremendous job. And there is a lot of pressure to be perfect, and not everybody is, because we're all humans. So that's a good reminder there.
And that's why I said that is it's out to all the wrestlers that made it this far. Wrestling, like I said, you suffer both mentally and physically. I mean, the conditions you have to train and compete in and still remain focused. Not many sports you have to endure that. So if anyone's made it to this point, kudos to them. Keep it up.
Yeah, for sure. We've got Jaleesa and Luke tonight representing the Jerome Tigers, and Caden Rubash. Jerome coming on strong at the end of the season. We want to hear from everybody in the chat tonight, where you're at, who you're representing. I know we always get some Moscow and Lewiston people from up north, Post Falls, of course, South Fremont, New Plymouth. Those are our heavy hitters, but I want to hear everybody in the comments, in the chat tonight. Al, let's talk about the Weezer tournament. That was kind of the big one that was going on statewide. And so before we get to that, Bugsy says he's in Declo. Declo is kind of a sneaky 2A team. We've talked about them a couple of times for sure. But you took a look at some stuff from the Weezer tournament, and again, a theme, a lot of younger competitors stepping to the forefront.
Yeah, we had 19 kids that were freshmen that placed. I would call this a competitive tournament based on the stats. Individually, if you looked at individually the team, Fruitland won it. They had a pretty good performance. They had 5 teams ranked in their respective divisions, plus the Oregon team from Burns was 5th. And that team, out of 11, I think 10 of their kids that placed, they're all ranked in the state. But of the individual champions, the 3A had 10 of the 15 champions. So it was really 3A strong. State ranking, if you look at the state rankings, there was 35 state ranked wrestlers that placed. The 3A had the most with 51%, 18. And then if you go by, places by state division, once again, the 3A had 13 kids play. So overall, pretty competitive tournament.
Yeah, it was really fun to see the results that came through from the Weezer competition. Along the lines of underclassmen, Troy Hobbs from South Fremont wants to know who you think is the best freshman this year. He says Nate Gugelman or Damian Hamilton looks really tough. What are your thoughts, Al? And before we answer that question, it's Brian. Hey, what's up, Brian?
Hey, guys. Sorry I'm running late. Just got done with the duel.
No, that's all right. Where were you at tonight?
We had Idaho Falls Skyline, which is always a barn burner. So it came down to the last match like it often does. And good crowd tonight under the spotlight. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good to have you on here, Brian. We just got asked the question who we think the best freshman is this year in the state that we've seen. Al, go ahead.
I agree. Gugelman's one of them. He's a solid kid. He's going to be one of the top kids to possibly be in the finals this year. You know, like I said, at 113s, you got Marcus Ailman at Fruitland. He's ranked number 2 in the state. He won the tournament, so he's going to be up there. You know, I beyond that, I'm not sure. I mean, Jacob, based on what you know, what's your thoughts?
Freeman from Caldwell. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Canyon Ridge's 20-pounder.
Yeah.
I'd really like to remember his name right now, but Canyon Ridge 120.
Yeah. What about the kid, 98-pounder from Caldwell? Hershert?
Yeah, he's
Ryan?
pretty good.
Yeah.
98 has a ton of freshmen that are super tough.
Yeah.
Anderson from Highland, Frothinger, Shank. All those guys are pretty tough. Motley just beat Shank about an hour ago, so better put some respect on him too. And I say that there's quite a few. Burley, Vega, Tristan Vega from Burley. There's a handful. My vote, Damian Hamilton.
Yep, I was going to say Hamilton as well, and I know Century has some good younger guys this year. Tom Baumgardner is representing Century tonight, of course, in Pocatello. Kim Leonard watching on YouTube from Middleton. Kim, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it. Brian, do you have a nominee for best freshman this year?
You know, I think all of those that you named, I think Braylon Moon from Ryrie is, you know, for the 2A schools is a great freshman. You know, on the girls' side, it's too bad the Brown girl from Thunder Ridge was just rocking it as a freshman.
Yeah.
And then you also have Kyler Scott from Century. If you're looking at girls, that is just, you know, been dominant for a freshman at that weight. So, but I agree boys-wise with everything you said there, but I do like Moon from Ryrie. He's good-looking freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's a good one for sure. Amy Dimmick Bowen says, is it Hall that's the Canyon Ridge 120? Yep.
Sean Hall.
So, yep, there we go. Okay, so that was a good question there. Best freshman, and then it's so exciting to see all of the freshmen and even the sophomores that have come through and competed really well this year. Okay, we've also got here in the chat Alfonso tonight from home in Thunder Ridge Country. He's watching the show tonight. What do you guys think about avoiding a guy for state rankings or a coach sending a guy to an easier tournament to pad their record? I know everyone does it, and it has happened forever, and I understand why they do it, but I don't like it. I don't like it either, Alan. You were shaking your head right away on this.
No, I mean, to be the best, you have to wrestle the best, and you'll know your true potential unless you put it on the line. You got to be willing to fail. Got to be willing to lose. That's the only way you're going to know how to better yourself. So, no, I don't agree with that.
I mean,
you have to wrestle the best, and you'll –
Jacob, you can only hide for so long, right? Eventually, you're going to get to state, and it'll be exposed.
Yeah, I don't see the point of sitting.
Be willing to lose. That's the only way you can know how to better yourself.
Sitting,
so, no, I don't agree with
maybe if you're making a team run, trying to get on certain sides, maybe it's the only way you could probably justify it. Other than that, just wrestle.
Yeah, exactly.
The end of February is coming. You know, you're going to want to be your absolute best. You can only sit for so long.
Yeah, for sure. And Brian, it is something that's like there's some gamesmanship involved there, I guess, on the part of coaching staffs, but I don't know that it happens a ton, but I'm kind of the new guy here. Is it really that prevalent that it's kind of the elephant in the room people talk about?
You know, I don't think it's that prevalent either. I mean, most coaches want the kids to go out there and have the exact attitude that Al said. You want to be the best, you wrestle the best. And I think these kids are such fierce competitors that they want to. The coaches are competitors. So every once in a while, I'm sure it happens, but for the most part, I don't think so. And, you know, I don't like it either where they're there to compete. So let them wrestle.
Yeah, there's exceptions. Sometimes you can be injured and you don't want to be, you're not 100%. You don't want to put it on the line yet. I mean, but during the regular early part of the season, you want to wrestle the best kids.
Yes, 100%. So that was a good question as well. Jordan Thomas from Glens Ferry listening tonight. Hey, go Pilots. Yeah. Well, we were talking about this on another podcast today about how wide open I think 2A wrestling is going to be. I think you're going to have all of kind of the big powers from each district, right? You're looking at, Ryrie and Malad and West Side and Declo and New Plymouth and Kellogg, and they're all going to be bringing a lot of guys because I feel like they're all going to do really well at their respective district tournaments. Brian, what do you think about this 2A race? I really do think it's the most wide open, most competitive. I think there's any number of teams that could come away with the first place trophy.
Absolutely. I mean, watching out at Chalice, I think Ryrie had somebody on the podium, the first 8 or 9 weights. Maybe they missed 160 in there, but they had kids on the podium. Westside had a few champions. They were 1 and 2 at Chalice, and you had a bunch of 4A schools there as well. So, Westside's coming on strong. They've got a couple kids that should be state champions. And New Plymouth, we know what they're going to bring every year. So I would completely agree. 2A is wide open, and, it's going to be who can sneak the most into the district tournament, I think. Looking at Ryrie's district, they're going to get a lot of their JV squad in. They've got some depth there, so that'll be fun. And I think New Plymouth is about the same. Westside, I'm not sure they've got the depth, but, their front squad is for sure going to come in strong. So it's wide open. It could go any of those 3 schools, and obviously Kellogg's there as well. So.
Yeah, I think Kellogg is a team that everyone should keep an eye on. Daniel Sundstrom giving a shout out to Chase Scribner from Kellogg and also Wyatt Carey from Timberlake, couple of guys up north.
Kellogg's sneaky good.
Yes, and Troy says the same thing. I was up north last weekend, and I was very impressed with Kellogg. I really do think Kellogg could come through and make some noise. We talked about that, making the drop down from 3A to 2A. Along with Priest River. Jed says Kellogg looked good this last weekend for sure. And
if they get a little bit of that depth through.
Yeah, Kellogg's that's going to be the key, right? Is
Kellogg's going top 2 if they get a little bit of depth.
Yep, and Bugsy kind of agrees. Ryrie, New Plymouth, Malad, Westside, Kellogg. That's what he thinks his top 5 is going to be. Depth, a huge deal for sure. So more shout outs coming in the chat. We've got David and Michaela watching from Rupert. Go Minico, of course. We always have our Minico fans that tune into the Matt Chat Prepcast. And, on the subject of districts and, how many bids each district gets in terms of going to state, I got an email today and I wanted to share it from TJ Jones. He's an assistant coach at Mountain View. He's also the father of Shiloh Jones. And this has kind of been a storyline that's been underreported a little bit this year, but Mountain View has 3 heavyweights that are all just dudes. They're all studs. In fact, he shared a picture with us. I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. Here they are representing last weekend at the Weiser tournament. And you see right there, they're all right there in the top 4. Now they only get to send 2 guys to state. And Coach Jones says, it's a crying shame that one of the best will not be able to compete in the postseason just because he has 2 great battle buddies. And so, Al, what do you think about this? That is kind of a heartbreaking deal, right?
Yeah, because you got Shiloh Jones. He's 2-time state placer. He's a Fargo All-American, number 2 in the state. You got Brandon Moore, state qualifier, ranked 4th. And then you got McGinnis, who was 2-time state qualifier. And he's also a folk style All-American. So you got 3 solid kids that are all capable of medaling. It's almost like it'd be nice to have an exception where you have a wild card, but I don't know if they've ever done that before. But if there was a case of something like that, it'd be nice to see all 3 of them wrestle at state.
Yeah, Brian, has it always been kind of just we look at how many teams and how many athletes and it's all predetermined?
Yeah, it's always been, as far as I know in Idaho, they've always just allowed 2 per school, regardless in the district tournament. Maybe that would be an interesting idea to throw out to some of the districts. If you have a 3rd solid kid, there could be 1 wild card based on seeding or something, depending on the district. It could work, and not a bad idea. I hope Coach Jones is watching because I don't feel bad for him at all. I told him Shiloh could come down to Skyline and take care of that problem. But I saw him at Minico when they were wrestling each other, and I said, I could fix that for you. So I don't feel bad.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, it is. It's kind of a bummer. And so that's kind of the obvious one, but this is happening in every classification at different weight classes. And sometimes it's just the raw deal. It happens in other sports as well, basketball, volleyball, for example, in basketball this year, Pocatello and Preston are both top 5 teams. Only one of them is going to get to go to state because of a small district. So you just got to be the best. You got to beat the best, right? And go ahead.
I'm sorry. Jones is a junior and McGinnis, I believe, is a junior, whereas Moore is a senior. So 2 of the 3 will be back next year, hopefully.
And the good thing with wrestling is heavyweights, that's where it's the worst, because in all the other weights, you can go up or down, somewhere. So if you have 3 studs at one weight, usually a coach will figure that out and you'll try to get everyone to stay. But heavyweight's the one weight that there's just it's not practical to 285 to get down to 225. It's quite a stretch, or 220.
Yeah. It's not going to happen. And I guess the one difference would be where, like I gave the example of Pocatello and Preston basketball, where they're both competing for one spot to state. This is teammates competing against teammates, right? It's brother on brother. And so that does add an element to it that you don't see in the other sports, for sure. Miguel Martinez watching from Rupert, Spartan Country, Minico. Jason Bryant says, evening, folks. Evening, Jason. Thanks for being with
big
us.
dog.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Is that Jason Bryant? Big Jason Bryant? Hey, thanks for showing up on the podcast. We appreciate it.
I just got a delivery guy. Coach Snyder showed up with this hat after the duel because IF beat Skyline. So he's standing here and let's go Tigers. There we go. Nothing like showing up to rub it in, right?
Oh man, you're gonna break out in hives wearing that hat, Brian.
It's horrible.
Oh man, that's the highlight of the night for sure. JJ here from Post Falls, Idaho, checking in. Thanks, JJ, as always. Bugsy's got a question. Can you guys post the state tournament wrestling schedule? Yeah, we definitely can put that up on IdahoSports.com. It is also on the Idaho, the IHSAA website right now as well. I think it just got posted in the last day or 2 there, but it's also there at idhsaa.org. Aaron watching from Rexburg. Go Madison. Yeah, there's a lot of good East Idaho representation here tonight for sure.
It's all over.
And we want to hear from you in the chat. If there's a question, a probing topic you want us to answer. Some of our best topics have come from the audience. There was the week where we talked about who was the best sibling duo, right? Best brother-sister duo in wrestling right now. And now, speaking of that, you have been a great voice for girls wrestling in Idaho in terms of getting it more coverage and more exposure. You've done a fantastic job of highlighting the rapid growth of girls wrestling throughout the state of Idaho. And you have you've done another deep dive into the numbers because the girls wrestling competition is an all classification. You'll have 5As competing all the way down to 1A all at the same time. You went back and looked at last year's state tournament and kind of did a breakdown of who came from what classification to kind of give us an idea of what this all class girls tournament might look like.
So last year, the top 10 teams, Eagle won the state championships. If you look at the top 10 teams, 3 were from the 5A, 6 were from the 4A, and then we had a 1A school place in the top 10. If we break it down by individual champions, we had 10 weight groups last year. The 5A had 5 of the 10, 4A had 3, 3A had 1, and 2A had 1 as well. If we look at the state placers by division, total of 60. The 4A had the most, 23. They were just close. They were 38%. 5A had 20 placers. 3A had 8. 2A with 4. Then 1A division had 5. Of the total incoming freshmen from last year, 20% were incoming freshmen. So that's a good sign. But if we look at the bigger picture through time since the first state tournament, I think it was 2018 where they had an open state tournament, or 2019. if we look at that, or we'll just go to the Jaybird tournament, which is one of the better tournaments. In 2018, they started with 40 girls. Fast forward to 2023, we had 304 girls. Today, the recent rankings, we have 7 girls ranked nationally. So for a small state, that is not too bad. And then going back, another note too is if we look at the growth in Idaho, I think the first state tournament was 2019. We had 60 girls. Fast forward to today, we have close to 600 girls are now competing. So it's on an exponential growth spurt. Another leading indicator is girls wrestling college commits. As of now, and I hope someone posts if I miss anyone, but I know Sophie Sarver from Mountain View just signed with Life University. Cadence Beck of Grangeville High School is signed with or committed with Eastern Oregon. And then I believe Abby Piper of Post Falls has committed with William Woods University, which is in Fulton, Missouri. If we look who's wrestling in college, and please highlight if I missed anyone, but we have Marissa Jimenez, who is a multiple state champ, Pan American champ. She's at Oklahoma City. Liv Weber of Eagle is now at Eastern Oregon. And then a lot of people remember Sierra Foster. I believe she was an All-American at Oklahoma City. Now she's training at the OCTC in Ohio State, working on her PhD in chemistry. So, yeah, it's growing. We're seeing a rapid growth, and at the pace we're going, we'll probably have over 1,000 girls in the next 5 years or less.
That's outstanding. That I love to hear that. And for my 2 cents, I kind of like Eagle in the team race again on the girls' side. They've got some good numbers. DJC says, Brian, I haven't been gone for a month and you're wearing an IF hat.
Yeah, at least DJ's kid did his job tonight. He got the win, and Skyline just couldn't pull it out. It was a fun duel. This is the result of a bad bet, right?
A lot of fun for sure. Troy says, good duel, some really good matches in Meridian and Nampa. For those duels, hats off to all of them for sure. And
they just wrestled about an hour ago, finished.
Yeah, and you were watching that film before we hopped on, right, Jacob?
Yeah, I was watching the live on Meridian's Facebook.
That's the dedication of our panel here. Yeah, you had a couple of different matches up. You had multiple screens going before we hopped on tonight.
Nampa, Meridian, AF Marsh, and then I watching Kyrie go off right now. So a little basketball too.
Right on. Okay, so Break Blake wants to know how many potential 4-time state champs this year. Al, you always chronicle really well the 3-time state champs at the start of the year. There's only 2 this year, Jacob?
I don't know. I'm guessing Al knows for sure.
Oh.
I'm going.
Well, we got Frothinger from Eagle going for it. We got Hans Newby. We got Hunter Hobbs, both South Fremont. Those are a few wrestlers I know are going for their 4th state title.
Close. I was guessing off the top of my head.
That's pretty good. Brian, is there anybody else that you can think of?
I can't think of anyone else. Usually before the state tournament, I'll go through it, and I know Al will too, and we'll get all that data the week before the tournament. But that's all I can think of too off the top of my head are those 3.
Yeah, it's a rare club for sure. It is a tough thing to accomplish, no doubt. Jason says, question for Al. Since he spent so much time in California, how does the energy of the Idaho State Wrestling Championships compare to California? What things does Idaho do better at the tournament? And then he went on to say, I'm sure Idaho folks know this already, but when Al gets his hooks into something, he really goes all in. He was my go-to guy for info in California for over 15 years. That's high praise, Al.
The difference between California and Idaho, I have to say Idaho wrestling's great. There's a lot of energy here, a lot of great coaching, a lot of great wrestlers. The culture here is great. But when it comes to the state tournament, because California is a 1-division state tournament, it's so pencil focused on these elite guys. So that's your focus at the state tournament, who's going to get into the blood rounds. But at the Idaho State tournament with the 4 divisions, you have that dynamic in 4 quads, right? The 2A is really exciting. The 3A, I mean, the energy is about the same, to be honest with you. But that's the uniqueness in the divisions is you have those highs and lows in 4 different sections of the of the facility.
Yep.
I'm just impressed we have Jason Bryant watching our show. There's a wrestling Hall of Famer, national broadcaster. I mean, running a show here with that kind of audience. So
we appreciate him showing up. He does a great job, and we just yeah, it's a lot going on here, Idaho. Jason, we're having a good time, and appreciate you checking us out.
Yeah, we really appreciate that for sure. If our heads get any bigger, we won't be able to occupy.
Al, you got an extra bedroom for Jason, right? Let him.
He wants to come out. He's got a place to stay.
There we go. See?
Yep, no doubt. So Al, you were talking about some of the female wrestlers that are in college now. Miguel from Minico reminds us that Lita Cruz is at Grandview University. She was a really fun competitor to watch for Minico over the past couple of years. Alfonso says, shout out to state dance this weekend. My kid I have left is competing. Yeah, I was talking about this big run up. I totally forgot to mention cheer and dance. That's this weekend, and then you got girls basketball, and then wrestling, and then boys basketball. So it is nutso time at IdahoSports.com. No doubt about it. We are sprinting to the finish line. Alfonso had a follow-up question. Now that some kids' seasons have come to an end, how do you keep those kids interested and keep practicing? The good teams can do it, but a program that is struggling, it's tough. I know some teams reward those kids with a trip to state to cheer on their teammates. Jacob, how do you keep guys motivated to keep them going? That's really the hard part of it.
Tough, kind of. Some of them, ending their season. It's hard to keep them in the room, but being a good teammate, there's a lot of culture. That's how you kind of build it. Contributing, like all those guys need you still, partner-wise. Still getting a little bit better for a tournament. You need everybody you can get in there. And he's right. Reward them with, the hotel stay and the trip to state and stuff like that. A little easier. Still kind of hard. Wrestling's tough, so
you can
have a goal.
You can kind of get to that point where you're just like, man, I'm done with it. I don't want to keep burning the candle. But Brian, how do you? Because I'm sure you've seen this over your time. How do you keep people engaged?
Get their eyes focused on the next goal. I mean, that's where club wrestling kicks in. Freestyle Greco season. A lot of kids that folk style is a grind. I motivate our high school kids, just telling them, freestyle Greco tournaments are a lot of fun. It's a little more relaxed. It's free flow. So get them out there. That's why we keep a 12-passenger van, and we try to tell the kids we'll pay their entry fees. Get them singlets, shoes for helping coach the little kids. Just keep them involved doing whatever we can in the off season, and get their eyes focused on next season right away. But that's really why I love the Greco freestyle season, because it does kind of break up that mundane. So that's, one thing I like to see in these good teams. You look at all these guys that have signed D1, every single one of them, it's Fargo or freestyle Greco from here until Fargo. And, they'll hit folk style and nationals and stuff too, but just the different styles and the different feel. So I think that's a great way to keep kids going.
Yep. Coach Snyder says February is the best time to be wrestling. Everything up to this point has just been practice and preparation. Now is when everything matters. And Al, even for those players or those competitors that aren't, their season has come to an end, you can still show up to practice and give those guys that are still pursuing those state goals. You can work hard and make them work hard and get better still, right?
Yeah, we encourage that. I mean, we have some kids that lost some wrestle-offs. As everyone knows, in Idaho, the top two in each weight group from a school can go to districts, qualify for state. We have some weight groups at Rocky where our third and fourth place, our string kid, it has beaten the number 2 guy in any given day. So it's so close. And, if they lose, you encourage them, hey, come back in. You just got to keep moving, keep working at it. So, yeah, there's some kids we encourage that because they're so close.
Yeah, it's really a fine line for sure. So, that's a great question though. Thought-provoking question. And that's the programs like, South Fremont, Ryrie, Meridian recently. It takes time to build that culture, like Jacob said, and it all starts there with getting everybody to buy in. And so it's been impressive to see the programs that have had this sustained run of excellence continue to do phenomenally well. especially at the smaller schools. You know, guys, usually we do the show on Tuesday nights. Last night I had a basketball game I had to cover. I was actually at Thunder Ridge where the Ryrie girls won the girls basketball district championship. And I'm thinking to myself, man, the Ryrie girls have won like 7 district titles in a row. The Ryrie boys basketball team is in first place. And then their wrestling program just shows up year in, year out. They must have every athlete, Brian, in that school go out for a winter sport. And they're all excellent no matter what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a culture of excellence out there. And I think they do have everybody out. And, the coaches just do a fantastic job. I mean, they'll have 70 kids in the wrestling room, which is just amazing for a 2A school. So impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Al, we were talking about 4-time state champs earlier. Yanita says, Al, if I remember, Alyssa Randalls is in the run for a 4-time state title.
She's won 3. She's ranked. She's the highest ranked in the state, in the country. 126 is, and I'm not sure if she's picked a college yet, but yeah, she's a heavy favorite to win number 4. So yeah, she's right now, I'd say pound for pound, she's probably the best girl in the state, one of them.
Yeah, she's been really fun to watch, and we talked about as well that they should really incorporate, when you're talking about 4-time champions, incorporate those athletes that won back in the early stages when it was an open competition. That should all be included in the records process for sure. Wendy has a question: how does it work with girls since they're not separated out by divisions? So we talked about how the bracket had gotten expanded this year, but what is the actual selection process? How do they fill out that bracket? Because you're taking all classifications, all districts. Al, do you know how that gets filled out?
I think it's multiple districts and the girls competing in a region, and then from there they go to state. So I am not 100% because this is the first year we've done this, so I haven't had a chance to really look at it closely. But I would think a lot of the 5 and 4A schools in our region probably wrestle in the same district tournament. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I look at that.
Yeah, it is. It's broken out. So districts 1 and 2 are together. So all classifications. Then district 3, 4. So districts 1 and 2 get 2 girls. District 3 gets 5. Districts 5 gets 3 girls, and then district 5 and 6 over here on this side of the state are combined and get 5, which can be a crazy tournament. We were trying to plan the girls regional tournament over here. And you could possibly have 35 schools. Now, looking through the brackets or the entries, there'll probably be about 29 teams there. But that could, it makes it for a lot of fun. And it's really hard to, go through and try to plan where you want to put your girls because the girls are bouncing around a lot. And then there's I think they have 1 wild card for the girls. So those districts are assigned, 2, 5, 3, and 5. And then there's 1 wild card available, which is going to be in a high demand. And it's like a super state for girls is what we have right now. So it's kind of cool that way.
Yeah. Those wild cards are uber competitive for sure. There's going to be some people that will disagree with those, but it is what it is.
So Brian, we talked about 4-time state champions for the girls. Last year, Lita Cruz became the first from Minico.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Alyssa Randalls and we got Olivia Woods from Eagle that are both in position to win possible number 4.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's outstanding. That's really.
But I have to say, at the pace girls wrestling's going in the competition level, not to take anything from what the girls have achieved now, I think it's going to get more and more difficult in the years to come to see those type of accolades because it is getting that much tougher.
Yeah, I can't think of many freshmen. I mean, Kyler Scott's going to be in there, but she's got Cadence Beck to face. The brown girl from Thunder Ridge would have been in there competing, and unfortunately she's out. So I don't know if we're going to have anybody this year qualify, to be pushing for that 4 years. So we could have a hiatus there.
We have Talia Nichols from Rocky Mountain. She was the under 14 national champ. She's done pretty good, but she's in a competitive weight. So
yeah,
we'll see. But she has that potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that 114 weight, you really got 3 freshmen that could. You got Taylor Hood from Buell is also right in the mix, and obviously Kyler Scott, who we've already said. So you got 3 freshmen right there that could be competing for it, which is impressive.
Yeah, impressive. Is Slider a freshman or a sophomore?
I think Kyler's a freshman. Pretty sure Kyler.
Slider.
Oh, Oh, Jolie, she's a sophomore.
Did she win it last year?
She did not. She was, or did she at 100? I didn't think so, but I'd have to look. It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head. We'll look it up.
Yeah.
Bugsy, my man in Declo, he's all about the chaos. He says, telling you, 64-man bracket with power rankings could be good. I don't know. Anytime you're putting power rankings in as a criteria, that opens up Pandora's box.
Bugsy can't start with that, with how he opened the show.
To be fair, after I said he called this all idiots, he did say, not idiots, just some things overlooked. Definitely not idiots. So we appreciate
now that I know he's from Declo, I know where he's going with it. I see what he's saying.
Yeah. And then Bugsy had this idea as well. Let's combine the guys division, like the girls, just saying it could be good, could be a nightmare. Yeah, we've talked about maybe having a tournament of champions type deal. That'd be kind of fun for sure. Here's a question from Matt. Apologies if this has been covered before. I don't think we talked about this on the show, but will weight classes adjust to the new NFHS classes next year? That's the National Federation of High Schools. Brian, do you know, are we typically whatever the NFHS does, Idaho adopts that? So
yeah, we will be adopting them next year. They talked about it in the preseason meetings, and so we have those weight classes ready to go. The one thing that I don't think they've decided, and they may do it at the coaches meetings the week of state, is, like 98, we added that as a state. And so there's some options, and there's options there. There's 2 or 3 plans, but if I remember right, they've already decided which option they're going to do, whether it was that you have the option of like 10 girls weights and 15 boys, or 15 boys and 12. And so I believe that decision's been made, and I don't have the rule book in front of me to say what those are, but we are going to be adopting, and it's going to be changing.
What is changing? Is it just the number of weights, the variance of weights, or there's no, like 98 will remain 98, right? Or is it going to get tweaked?
It's going to get tweaked. And so, and I wish I had my preseason manual in front of me. Like, it seems like one of the options, the weights go from like 60 to 65. So you have a 57 to 65. So there's some definite adjustments in there. And yeah, I don't know, Jacob, maybe you have it in front of you. Remember what the new weight classes are going to be, but it's out there.
I thought it was more closer to college weights. I'm not exact, but I think it's a lot closer. I was looking at it because Utah does it. Utah has the new ones right now.
Yep.
But not a lot of states have 98, so it'd be hard to drop it.
Yeah.
Especially in Idaho.
Matt says looks like a little more space between the upper weights, which I think actually would be a good thing. I don't think that's going to be a bad thing necessarily in the upper weights. So
yeah, so here it is. It's 106, 113, 20, 26, 32, 38, 44 is the first one that's different. 150, 57, 65, 75, 90, 215, and 285. And then the one option is that's only 14 weights, and Idaho is one of the few handful of states that added a 15th weight class with 98 pounds. And my guess is they're going to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. Jed says it all changes after 138. And that's kind of what Brian just said. So yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be a new tweak that
I actually like those weights.
Yeah, I actually do too, as Brian was reading them off. So I think that'll be a good change for sure. So
I looked up Jolie Slater. The reason she won't be going for 4 is last year girls didn't have a 100-pound weight class. And so she was wrestling in the 106, weighing about 90 pounds. So if we had 100 last year, I think she'd definitely be pushing for that 4-pound.
Man, and that's the kind of stuff, that's the context that's important when we start talking about, the great female wrestlers in the state of Idaho. This was kind of a as we did it, was it perfect right away? Of course not. And so those are important things to note as we look back on the history of girls wrestling in Idaho as well. That's a good point to make there, Brian, for sure. So, all right. Well, I think that about caps it off. We had a lot of good, activity in the chat again from everybody that was tuned in and watching tonight. What is everybody? What are you guys doing this week? We got districts coming up real soon. Brian, where are you at?
So I'm going to be at the girls district tournament for regions 5 and 6 this Saturday. And then, so not a lot after tonight until girls district Saturday. So that's where I will be all day Saturday, and then getting ready for all those district tournaments the follow this next week, which is just going to be, we'll know a lot come next week. That's for sure.
Yep. Al, where are you going to be at for districts?
Well, districts will be, yeah, it's going to be on a Tuesday and Wednesday of next week of all days. So we're going to be at the Expo Center in Boise. And I think it's going to be boys, girls, 5A, and then I believe boys 4A too. So they're mixing it up this year. So something new. So that's where we'll be next week.
Okay. And Jacob, you're going to be at Master Control, kind of keeping an eye on everything, right?
Yeah, I wish everybody would pick up flow. It'd be way easier. My week, I won't have to get off the couch and just watch track. It's way better. I get all the kids in the club. I have their flows. They're probably going to change password now, but I have every TV and every device has a different flow account, so I can watch all of them. It's way better. So that's how I run my weekends. I can watch some college guys. I can watch this, that. And I'll just watch on track. Girls is really the only thing happening this weekend. I know there's some 2A duels Friday.
Yeah, and Bugsy says Declo headed to Buell tomorrow with Kimberly for a little try match there, so that should be pretty good competition. All right.
Much.
Yeah, it kind of lightens up as we get to districts, of course, and then we have that mad 2-week sprint to the end for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of late shout outs coming in here. Mendy says shout out to Hudson Rogers, who recovered from an ACL injury. It's been a pretty awesome story this year on the wrestling circuit for sure. Julie and Eric say Pilgrims, the Hammers at New Plymouth. They want to give a shout out to the Grims. Andrew Ollinger says shout out to Aaron McDaniel from Westside. He's going to have some options. I think he's a really good football player too, a good defensive lineman, outstanding wrestler. Yeah, I'm very excited to continue to watch his development for sure. And David and Michaela say Minico is going to Jerome tomorrow. That should be interesting in terms of that conference.
Some good matches.
Yeah, District 4, Jerome and Minico, the clear, top two teams there. And Alfonso says, Jacob, my flow account.
Yep. Titan 1, baby. I know it, Alfonso.
And Leah says, Wendell is hosting Declo on Monday. I assume that's, is that for districts, Leah? I mean, I think I can't remember how many teams are in the district. In all the other sports, it's just Declo and Wendell. But with wrestling, with the 1A's coming up, it might be a little bigger. But yeah, that'll be fun to watch for sure. So, okay. Thanks everybody that tuned in tonight on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Bugsy says districts next Thursday. There you go. So just Wendell and Declo in a duel. Thank you for clearing that up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Before you head out, again, if you could hit that like button, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and then retweet it, share it on Facebook, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's going to help everybody that couldn't be here live tonight come back tomorrow or even Friday to come back and rewatch it. So just hit that like button on the way out. And thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, for Al and Jacob and Brian, I'm Brandon, and we'll see you next week for another edition of the Matt Chat Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.